to educate, excite, and equip
an inclusive population
of elementary students
to pursue a sustainable world
in bioscience and urban agriculture.
We are Greenhouse Venture.
Board President Purcell contacted me because he had a vision and he had a site.
I think if you look at Tom and you listen to him for a little while, you begin to think anything is possible.
Where could we find 3.5 acres? That was right in the middle of 4 schools. That was right around universities. That was a highway. So we're the first in Missouri, and we're the first in the Midwest to do this kind of thing. But isn't it great to be the first for the students?
He had this idea of creating a space in which students from public and private institutions, as well as researchers and the public in general, could learn about agriculture and where our food comes from.
And we decided that it should be a space where not only children, but also adults, when we're not working with children, could come in and learn about how to grow things in cities, to experiment with growing on the embankments of highways, of major highways.
So when the venture came to MoDOT and said, we have this vision to utilize the interstate right-of-way to build a garden, invite people into this interstate space, how do we go about it? And so MoDOT's team worked with Federal Highway Administration and the venture to develop how that plan worked into safety and the constructability and make the space available.
The federal government mandated all the states to begin to look at highway margins as a place to help reverse the great bee collapse that's going on all over the country.
There was a presentation in this classroom about bees pollinating, and then we also the reason why we wanted to see if it would grow on a highway is because of all the exhaust from cars.
The problem is we don't know how that green space needs to be altered to incorporate pollinators. So the greenhouse venture, and not only the embankment, but all that area is a great pilot project. It's the first step to try out stuff before we scale up.
When I think about what Greenhouse Ventures offers disadvantaged youth is exposure, because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know about these potential careers if you've not been exposed to them.
We need things like the Greenhouse Ventures campus to take those young people, to inspire them, to provide them a foundation upon which they can build as they go through life.
So not only could they learn about education, but they could learn about themselves. Learning about yourself or others is lifelong. And so we start in the 3rd grade focusing on science and focusing on urban agriculture.
Our job is to get them excited about science, so excited that they'll submit to all the learning, all the discipline, all the memorization, all the quadratic equations to actually accomplish something.
Learning about like the ecosystem, like how we did the ecosystem in the bottle, that was interesting to see how how some fishes died and some fishes survived and how the plants reacted.
I mean, the way we're going to drive STEM is kids have to get excited and they have to be able to touch it and understand it. You can understand plants, and to start to take that journey, I think it's fantastic.
Typical classroom, it's mostly just out of a textbook, but the GHV program takes it out of the textbook and allows students to have hands-on. And now they become almost like the one who created the textbook and participating by doing science projects.
So usually in science class, you're just mostly sitting there and listening to your teacher just like tell you what you're going to be learning about and what you're doing. But with Greenhouse, you get way more interaction with all the people that are helping you. You have people your age that you're also going to be talking with, and you get to interact like on hands with way more things than you would in a normal science class.
A lot of programs come and go, but this is something, especially food, sustainability, and agriculture, that's what America's been built upon. And that's something I believe that the Greenhouse Venture program is not only going to affect the Shaw neighborhood or our region, that it has potential to affect on a global scale.
One of the things that we were surprised by was how siloed everything in urban education is. Schools that may be 3 or 4 blocks apart, often only the principals even know one another.
So the idea was this. You had 4 grade schools, elementary schools. They're all within a mile. So let's see if we can put them together.
We found out these people don't know each other. They don't ever share things. And they discovered it too. And when they started realizing that something that's going on in an elementary school 4 blocks away is something they never thought of, and it's a great idea.
It's been pulled together by a team, but it was the passion of people in the neighborhood that know the players, they know the schools, and they had a vision.
I think it was just like a community of people coming together, and they made you feel welcome, and it just made me feel really good.
This is not only affecting the kids, it's affecting the parents. That now parents are seeing that, wow, that my child, they are at another school engaged and they have true friendships.
In normal life, I probably wouldn't have met those people just because they go to a different school and I wouldn't run into them. But now I'm friends with them, and it's really nice.
We've learned in education over the years the importance of diversity. Not simply diversity for the sake of diversity, not simply diversity because it's the right thing to do, which it is, but it actually impacts learning. People from different backgrounds coming together with different perspectives facilitates the learning for all, which is another very attractive thing about Greenhouse Ventures and its campus.
There's so much diversity among the young people, social and economic diversity, racial diversity. I think it's fantastic because many of the challenges that we face today have to do with lack of exposure to people that aren't like us.
The greater effect will be long-term, and that more kids will be educated. I believe graduate from high school to college. I also believe that as they go out and receive positions, it will be more in the science field. And there's a lot of organization within the city looking for young scientists.
Well, they teach you skills, and if you want to be a scientist, you're learning, you're starting, and you can just keep learning as you go. You get an early start.
It's so important because if you grow up in a distressed neighborhood, to assume that this young woman or man is going to have this idea of these are the paths before me. What does it take to end up working in a lab? That's not going to happen unless they have someone who they trust and know and can relate to say, oh, that's what that means. I can see myself in those shoes or in that lab coat or in that greenhouse, right? And so it's really, really important.
I think one of the things is that when they put the lab coat on, it increases their confidence.
It felt really, really good. It was like a graduation almost.
It's identity. A lab coat is recognition of science success when you're 10 years old or when you're 12 years old.
Most kids have been to the doctor, and when they see a doctor, they think this person probably have been to school for many, many years. And now all at once, when they put that jacket on, they see themselves into the same shoes as a doctor or a scientist. And then possibilities begin to happen, begin to shape in their young minds.
And so our focus from the very beginning was to produce a place which is kind of fascinating to them, that has interesting things going on everywhere in the building, everywhere on the embankment, where they can have those moments of childhood discovery where they say, that is so cool, I really wish I knew more about that.
So the second phase of the GHV campus is the Education Center.
Part of the idea when we designed the building was that when you did walk into the lobby space, you would be able to see into the greenhouse, which is where the aquaponics are taking place. It is a closed loop system, so it's very sustainable. When people walk into the building, then they'll be within that gardening environment and they'll be able to see all different types of growing. You'll be able to see the roof garden, You'll be able to see through the building back to the backyard where there will be more traditional types of gardening happening.
The building is not only going to impact our kids, it's going to impact the region. It's going to impact the community itself. It's something that is drastically needed. And I believe this would just be one of the many buildings that would be built.
We have a responsibility to think about creating those opportunities, not waiting for them to come, but investing our time and energy and treasure in these opportunities, not only because it's right for the individual, but it's the smart thing to do for the region. It's a phenomenal investment. The return on investment is one of the greatest investments you'll make.
If you truly want to have a workforce that supports the growth of our community, you have to be in it for the long haul. That's the challenge, changing attitudes, but we have to start. This is as good a place as any to start.
When you spend 5 years developing a plan and keeping primarily the same people around the table to implement the plan, you're in a perfect position to finish the plan.
I heard Bill Gates once say that ability is universally distributed, opportunity isn't, right? So every single boy and girl born in the world has the same potential for greatness that any of us, but it's the opportunity gap. And so I think that there are things that we can do to bridge that opportunity gap. The greenhouse venture is an example of that.
We were out on the embankment and we were doing soil testing in preparation for all the planting that has since gone on. And we wanted the students to collect the soil samples. So we had a 5th grader. He was tall. He got engaged in the soil testing, but suddenly what happened that really turned that to a moment for him was a ladybug landed on his hand. And he'd never seen a ladybug, and I don't think he'd ever had anything like that happen to him before. And he was so delighted. He was looking at this little red creature, and I saw him there. He wasn't doing a soil sample. He was looking at this little red creature. And then he started walking around to the other students, showing it to them. And I thought to myself, you know, that's the kind of moment you ought to be going with. You shouldn't be talking about the taxonomy of ladybugs. You should be letting one land on the hand of a kid who's never seen one. That kid will remember that all his life, I'll guarantee it. So I think the upstart is that in a way is what I think of as a greenhouse venture, creating ladybug moments for all kinds of kids.
From my experience, ideas evolve and plans evolve, and I believe this really is, you know, the second or third step towards something that could grow regionally and include all of the school districts in the region and really be a regional player in the national economy potentially. But we have to start here, and we have to start in our neighborhood.
For the elementary kids, for society in general, what you want to do is be a participant so that they can make choices, better choices. They can think more about what they're doing and how they participate. They can compete. They're willing to take risks. That's the real life.
I'd like to see a greenhouse venture campus spread across St. Louis. Put them on the map. We need 10 of them, 12 of them. It would be fantastic, especially when I think about all the kids that don't have access.
If you love children, if you love our world, if you want to get in on some ground roots and see how we're going to make a drastic impact in food sustainable for the world, this is it right here.